Phase 5, Eric Osceola here. Today we're going to go through Phase 5's theoretical programming model and talk a little bit about programming and how that affects you. So if there's any questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I'd be happy to answer those on an individual basis. Thank you. And here we go. So what you see here is the trainable components of performance, or TCOMP for short. And specifically, we're looking at the theoretical programming model that we use here at Phase 5 for all of our training. And some of you may or may not have seen this visually represented, but I'd like to take this chance to kind of go through this and to try to help everyone understand really how the system works and the workflow and design of the programming itself. So real quickly, you'll see in the top left-hand corner here in the blue the foundational strength component. And for all new clients, we try to encourage them to spend at least 2 to 3 months within this foundational strength component of our training. Specifically, we train the deadlift, shoulder press, bench press, and back squat. And what we like to do is put a premium on coaching this sort of foundational aspect of our program so that we can get you moving right, and you'll retain that a little bit longer term. So you'll see below that absolute strength and strength endurance represented. We train specifically for absolute strength primarily. A byproduct of that is strength endurance, and we've seen that over the years where an individual, let's say, has a 500-pound deadlift. He can do that for 1 rep. A byproduct of that is he can do 225-pound deadlift 20 times, 30 times. Relatively easy. Strength endurance is not an issue in that particular scenario because, again, the lift itself is less than 50% of his 1 rep max. So from a cross-adaptation standpoint, that's the biggest bang for the buck is absolute strength training. We've seen that time and time again, and what you'll see is that long-term gains developed within that foundational strength portion are sustainable long-term. So again, I'll say that real quickly again. Long-term gains that have developed through strength training are easy to maintain for a longer period of time. So what that means is that if you get your deadlift up to, let's say again for a 220-pound male, 500 pounds, that individual is going to retain a very large portion of that strength long-term with minimal amount of maintenance in terms of training. So that's just something to kind of keep in the back of your head, and that's why we put a premium on that initially, is that once you develop that strength, it's retained for years and years, which has many health benefits that I will address in videos to follow. But back to the model itself, real quickly, one of the questions people often ask is, when do I know it's time to transition out of the foundational strength towards the power training? And the answer I have there is it depends on the individual. It depends on your particular needs and goals. And more specifically, it relates to how we measure strength. And the way that we measure strength in the gym is through the Mark Rippetoe starting strength tables. In both facilities, Brandon and South Tampa, those tables are available for review in the gym. And just ask one of your coaches where they're at. They're up on the wall, and we'll be happy to direct you to them. At the end of this video, I'll also post this link so that you can download the PDF for your own personal use. And the key there is that all of our clients we'd like to see have high levels of strength, at least at the very minimum intermediate strength based on their body weight. And those tables are a good way to just kind of quickly assess where you're at in all of your lifts. And if you have problems with that, feel free to obviously get with me or one of the trainers, and we'll be happy to give you some direction there. So let's go to the next stage, which is a transition to power. And all of these particular models that you see here are available on the whiteboard on a daily basis. So if you're an individual who hasn't trained with Phase 5 yet, don't worry about the specifics too much, because once you get into the gym, we'll get you acclimated to all this nomenclature. But the transition to power phase is generally going to be a 4-week phase for most people. And I program that primarily just as a central nervous system primer phase. You're going from foundational strength or slow lifts to more explosive classic lifts like the Olympic lifts. And I feel it's important that over the course of anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks that you train that transition to power movements to, again, give your body the chance to kind of get prepared or primed for the more explosive, a little bit more difficult lifts that we do in the gym, which takes us naturally to the power-based lifting that we do. And again, all of this is obviously dealing with barbell movements. The most important portion of the power training that we do is the applied generation of force. every athlete that, regardless of which sport they participate in, needs a relatively high level of power. And obviously, the amount of which power they develop or train is dependent upon the sport that they've chosen to participate in. But for all of our general physical preparedness athletes, the power phase itself is directly dependent upon the strength phase. And that's why we put the premium on the foundational strength. If you're not a strong athlete, you cannot be a powerful athlete. It's just a 50% of the equation. If you haven't developed 50% of the strength, it's really no sense training power because you won't be very powerful. You see this often, and this is something that I really want to get across, is that the power movements are the sexy, kind of interesting, exciting movements that most people want to do. They want to clean and jerk. They want to snatch. But the reality is they're very complicated movements, and we teach in a progressive format, which means we teach you the simple stuff first and progressive or more complicated stuff later. And there's a reason that we do that. It's just like any type of educational-based system. Once you've mastered the simple things, the more complicated things become infinitely easier to transition into and to master long term. So again, really, really focus on that foundational strength. Do it right, do it well, get strong, transition to power. The power phase itself, the actual Olympic lifts, 8 years to master for some people. That's plenty of time to stay in that power phase. So don't be too much of in a rush to kind of switch over to that, because it's going to be kind of one of those 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of deal. Just kind of relax, get comfortable with the foundational strength lifts, and slowly transition to those power-based movements. The next portion that you'll see is energy system homeostasis, which is just a complicated way of saying energy system balance. The way that we program our conditioning, and again, we're going to kind of transition in this model, this visual aid, from the dedicated barbell movement training that we do to the dedicated conditioning aspect. And you can call that the WOD, you can call that daily training stimulus. Regardless, I prefer daily training stimulus, but I'll leave that up to you to differentiate. The energy system homeostasis training we do is anaerobic and aerobic. Anaerobic and aerobic. Let me just specify that. So again, this is something that in later videos I will directly deal with. It's a very complicated area in terms of how I program that and what we're trying to elicit in terms of dose versus response. And I don't want to spend too much time today to address it, but I do want you to know that it's a balanced system that we're trying to achieve. And again, dependent upon what your particular goals and needs are as an athlete, all of this type of programming in the gym can be modified or adjusted on the fly for you. Individually you can do that, or one of the coaches will be happy to assist you. So real quickly, we're going to move down one more tier here, and you'll see it in kind of the orange area, the musculoskeletal function. This is a very important portion of our program. We put a premium on that initially. Everybody has to get evaluated through our functional movement evaluation screening that I've developed over the years. And it's primarily a safety initiative that we have, and it's paid a lot of dividends over the years. We have very, very low injury rates, easily the lowest injury rates for a CrossFit facility, type training facility in the Tampa Bay area, and this is an important portion of it. The reality is that all of this type of training that we do here, everything that you see in this model, is dependent upon your potential, and I'll use that that term potential throughout some of these videos. Potential relates to your training age, your orthopedic health, your foundational strength, your power, your ability to produce energy through different energy systems. All of these are individual, and limitations in the orthopedic or the musculoskeletal function area will limit all of the performance-based training that we do. So it's super important that we keep you guys moving well, keep the injuries to a minimum, get your joints working the way they're supposed to work, and that's all the stuff that we deal with on the joint-by-joint warm-up that we do on a daily basis. Again, not real sexy, but it pays dividends, and for most of you, hopefully you're seeing some pretty large returns in that area in relationship to your performance. So anyway, that's a rough encapsulation of how I program and the theoretical programming model. We'll be dealing with the more specifics in lectures to come. Hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or call me. Ask any of your coaches about it. I'd be more than happy to help you. And hopefully everything's going well, and I look forward to speaking to everyone soon. Thank you.